all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You gotta work. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're gonna feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome for another edition of Lembit Öpik Live here on Unprecedented TV. And thank you so much for your increasing numbers. Big shout out to Claire Dyer. She's leader in the scoreboard at the moment for the week with an incredible set of viewing figures on her show, Dire Consequences. No wonder, though, she is an absolute trooper when it comes to campaigning. And as a presenter, too, you have an absolute diamond geezer on her show coming up fairly soon. If you're watching this in the archive, you'll probably find it there anyway, depending when you're watching. If you're watching it live, you're going to have to wait. But it's Kingsley Hamilton. What a great guy. It was a real joy to watch him doing the show. But it's not just that program. Do enjoy the archive. Go to Unprecedented TV and please subscribe and like. I never realized how important those things were before we set up Unprecedented TV, but it helps us a lot. Costs you nothing. The subscription these days, for now, remains free. But please do subscribe. I'm just so grateful that those numbers are going up all the time. Now, let's talk about a current issue. Once again, if you're watching it live, it's happening. If you're watching it in the archive, it will have happened. And we'll make some predictions and you can find out how accurate we at Unprecedented TV are, or otherwise. Donald Trump broke with history and has made 2 visits to the United Kingdom on official state business. He does come here for other reasons too, but a state visit is the big thing. He gets to meet the king. He gets to meet the prime minister officially and all of that. And day one was scheduled. Well, first of all, he spent the night at the beautiful and impressive home of the American ambassador in Britain. That's in central London. It's an incredible place. I've been lucky to go to that Regent's Park establishment a number of times myself. Really great event. They do know how to entertain. So that was the first night. I'm sure he had a great time. Day 2, that's King Charles and Donald Trump. And we're going to talk about the dynamics there. Day 3, Keir Starmer and Donald Trump. Wah, wah, wah. I'm not sure he's going to enjoy that quite as much as hanging around with King Charles. So that's the whole show. Not doing very much in public for security reasons. Not surprising, because lots of people in the mainstream media seem to be stirring it up, saying, oh, lots of people are unhappy with Trump being here. I'm not. I think Trump is a true international statesman. But other people are moaning, mainly the wokerati. So what does this achieve? Who are the winners? Who are the losers? Why is Donald Trump here again? And why did Keir Starmer, having argued with Trump about a lot of strategic things, invite him here for this visit? Well, joining me now to talk about all of that is a wonderful commentator. It's Nick Buckley MBE. Nick, good to see you. Welcome to a right royal discussion here. How have you been?
I'm good, thank you. And thanks for the invite back on your show.
It's always great to have you here because you say it like it is. And I've never been able to bully you into agreeing with me when you don't. And that's how it should be. Now, just for context, we're filming this in the middle of the visit, so it's not all finished yet. It hasn't ended, and those watching in the archive can compare what we say with what happens. But what's your take on it so far? As I said in my introduction, my take is that Donald Trump had a great night with the American ambassador in the United Kingdom. They get on really well. He'll have had a great day with King Charles because they're intellectually compatible. And he's going to have a pretty poor day with Keir Starmer because they're just in different divisions.
I think Trump will get everything he wants out of this visit because everything he wants will be personal. He likes the UK. He loves the UK. The UK and America have got a really close relationship. It's not always perfect. He gets to meet the new king because he loved the queen, and he will get everything he wants. No state visit ever happens and then deals are done because of the state visit. Those deals have taken months and years to be done, if they've been done. And the state visit is just a PR opportunity to announce those deals. So nothing will get done over the next few days that hasn't already been signed off and it's taken years, or at least months and months to get to. Starmer is invited in because, let's be honest, most of the Western world, most of the world needs to be on a good side of America, because America is still the world power, still the world economy, and you'd be a fool to reject America and what it can do for you in your country. But Starmer's going to get nothing out of it. He's going to get a headache from the far left. But state visits are not about sitting governments and sitting presidents. State visits is a way of keeping our countries close together. And that depends on whoever the country is. That's what a state visit's about, is to say, we're friends, we're allies. It doesn't matter who's in power. We've got common interest. And this is a way of us going on a date to show everybody we're still friends.
So there's a difficult backdrop to this, of course. The now infamous fiasco caused by Starmer himself of the Peter Mandelson relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And just to remind you of my position, Nick, Peter Mandelson made an interesting choice of best pal in Jeffrey Epstein, but it's not his fault that Keir Starmer appointed him as British ambassador. All of this had already happened. And there's no doubt that the Secret Service and the vetting people already knew all about it. So Keir Starmer has caused a total mess by not saying, yes, I knew all about it. It was a risk, but it's been vindicated by Peter Mandelson's good performance as the British ambassador, and the buck stops here. He could have said that. But instead, Nick, what he said was, oh, well, if I'd known what I know now, then I would never have appointed him, which means he's basically saying he's lying, because he did know, or he didn't know, in which case he's incompetent. So the whole backdrop to this state visit is caused by the fee.
Oh, sorry, I lost you for a moment. Are you there?
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. No, you just couldn't handle the truth, Nick. That's the problem. That was a Secret Service breaking in there. I'll say it again. That the whole problem with the Keir Starmer Mandelson thing is caused by Keir Starmer, because he either was incompetent and didn't know what everybody else knew, or all the important people knew, or he's lying. And that in itself is going to cause a lot of problems between Starmer and Trump, even if we don't see them publicly. So I don't for a moment imagine the press will leave this alone during the press conference.
There's quite a few things we need to discuss when it comes to Peter Mandelson. The first thing is, you can't blame somebody for having a friend who turns out to be a pedo. That could happen to anybody. But once you realise they're a pedo and have been arrested, they've been convicted, at that point, you should say to yourself, I don't want to be friends with this man anymore, because he's convicted pedo, just like Prince Andrew should have done. Convicted pedo, I don't think I want to be friends with him. Peter Mandelson didn't do that. He remained friends with him, active friends with him, while he was convicted. That's the issue here. Now, the ambassadorship to America is the most important position that you can imagine in any country. Everybody wants to be on the best side of America. You should send not only the best person for that job, you should send someone that the sitting president actually likes, because you're going to get a better deal. It actually should have been, I would imagine, it should have been Nigel Farage. He should have been offered that job. It would have been politically incorrect to do it. But I'm all about this country. So I'll work with my political enemies. I'll work with people I dislike if it's for the benefit of the country. So Nigel Farage would have been perfect for that position. Now, you're right. So for that, Starmer appoints, and according to the press, he appointed Mandelson because they're friends and he knows he can trust him. That's in black and white in the press from 6 months ago, from before Christmas. So he appoints him. And he should have known. One of the questions should have been, all right, Peter, you were friends with
Jeffrey Epstein.
Epstein. Is this going to come back to bite us? That should have been one of the questions. MI5, MI6 would have put a whole dossier together on this. This is one of the most important positions in any government. And so but when the government's in a death cycle, everything they do is wrong. Everything they do to try to correct the death cycle just makes the death cycle worse. And this is one of those things. They appointed someone from New Labour who knows all the right people, and he thought this will save me. But the death cycle pulls everybody with him.
Now, this is the thing. Once again, I don't want to focus too much on Peter Mandelson. We've talked a lot about Mandelson and so forth, and Starmer on the station. But to stress again, the problem here, in my view, isn't so much what Mandelson did, because you could say, yeah, Mandelson made some stupid decisions or some unwise decisions about the company he keeps, but he's so good that I, Keir Starmer, choose to take the hit on this when it inevitably arises and say, yeah, the buck stops with me, the Prime Minister. And my judgment is that despite Peter Mandelson's relationship with that now deceased man, the good he'll do for the country is so great that I'm willing to take the risk. He could have said that. And then it would have been a leadership position, which you can agree with or disagree with, but at least it would have looked like he owned it. Instead, he flip-flopped. First, he said, this man's got my full confidence. And then within hours went, well, actually, he hasn't. And that looked terrible. Now, compare that to Donald Trump. Donald Trump, a man who was shot at. He nearly got killed. And his immediate action was to be utterly defiant. I mean, it was one of the most impressive moments, in my view. Some people say it was staged, but I don't think that you could have really staged it. So we've got this. We've got Peter Mandelson and Keir Starmer looking like that, and I think they've probably got a picture of the shooting incident. I'm not sure, but it was just this vibrant moment of power, and I think it sums up the exact problem. There we are. That's the picture. But a moment of defiance, which I believe was authentic. I think he was within an inch or 2 inches of losing his life. And that seems to me to be the difference between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump. His words after nearly being assassinated: fight, fight, fight. That moment won him the presidency, I think. So, Nick, when these two meet, who's going to have the upper hand?
It's going to be Trump for many reasons. And it would have been Trump if Keir Starmer was on the top of his game. It'd still be Trump because Trump is the president of America. Now, he's going to have the top hands on this because Starmer can't think on his feet. Starmer, it looks like Starmer is just a middle manager. And there's people behind Starmer telling him what to say, what to do, what his policies are, and how to be Prime Minister. He's not a leader. When Trump was shot in that photo, the Secret Service tried to drag him off stage. He wasn't having it. He stood up, pushed them away, and went, fight, fight, fight. Because the job of the Secret Service was to save him, get him off the stage. There could be another shooter. He wasn't having any of that because he's a leader. He doesn't follow anyone. It's his way or the highway. And Starmer's the complete opposite. Starmer's the sort of person who says, can I say this? Am I allowed to say this? Should I do this? A leader says, I can say whatever I want. I'll do whatever I want. And I'm the one making decisions here, obviously within the law. And they're just complete opposites. So the meeting between them is just going to be, Starmer just wants some PR out of it. That's all Starmer does now. He wants to stand next to leaders so it looks like he's a leader, because he doesn't even go around the country anymore now. When was the last time you seen him in public in the UK?
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because he gets booed, he gets hassled, he gets wrong. And meanwhile, Trump, he's out there. He's just out there. He's being protected during this visit for security reasons, I'm sure. But I'm sure that's advice given to him rather than his own decision. And yet, I don't want, as I say, I don't want to sound like I'm just endlessly trying to run Starmer down, but I seriously believe the problem is the one that you say. Trump will win here because he's intellectual and leadership superior. Starmer is a pen-pushing middle manager who wanted to be prime minister but doesn't know why. Trump came back into politics because he felt so wronged by the things that he feels were done to him. And he said so. He said, I'd left politics, but I had to come back because I was enraged by what I saw. Starmer's never had that eureka moment, in my view. Now, let's talk about, in a moment, let's talk about the other interesting thing here, which is the relationship between King Charles and Donald Trump. And I'm going to put to you my thesis. Before that, though, I want to promote a show which I really love. It's going really well here. It's Full Throttle. It is our transport show, created in association with the Alliance of British Drivers, a great organization, really fantastic. Well, take a look at this. Full Throttle there. I was on QE2 once, Queen Elizabeth II. What a great vessel. You know, it could go the same speed backwards as forwards because of the shape of the hull. 36 knots.
That sounds just like Labour.
Oh, that is good. That is good in front of a live audience. Very, very good. I'm going to steal that. What's the similarity between the QE2 and the Labour Party? They can go forwards and backwards at the same speed. In reverse. That's great, which isn't Donald Trump. There's no going backwards with him. But I have to say that the amount of drift that we're seeing from the Labour Party now is phenomenal.
Can I give you an example of the difference between those two leaders?
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
And it's in the press today. Donald Trump has ordered the American military to kill, to assassinate, to blow up South American drug smugglers who are using boats speedboats to get to America. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday morning, they blew up a speedboat with 3 Venezuelans on it. All the drugs are splashed all over the ocean now, and no court case. They weren't arrested. It was only intelligence that led him to do that. But that's his new policy. His new policy is, if we think you're a drug boat coming to UK and we've got intelligence, we're going to blow you out the water. That is the sort of leader we need. That's a sort of leader who solves problems. He looks at the problems and he goes, right, how do we solve this? And and he looks in the room of all his advisors and he goes, don't any of you tell me what can't be done. I just want a solution. Don't tell me that can't be done. Tell me how it will be done. Keir Starmer, in the last 2 days, has had planes, French Air France planes, landing at a British airport, waiting to take illegal immigrants back to France. Yeah. And both those planes have took off empty because human rights lawyers like him, human rights lawyer, have stopped the flight. That's the difference between the two leaders of two different countries. One gets shit done, and the other one is going, well, this is against the rules. We can't do it.
And this is a classic example of it. Yes. Watch what happens when Donald Trump drops his papers, either on purpose or by accident. And let's see Keir Starmer's response. There he goes, groveling about on the ground.
To Keir Starmer, I would have done that because I'm a polite person. So if that would have happened, I would have bent down and picked him up. But I can understand the optics of that. The optics look like he's being subservient. But do you know what? It's English good manners.
Okay, I think though, maybe I'm being unkind. I think I've got to be fair on this. You make me feel a bit ashamed of using the example, but it feels to me like a visual summary of the relationship. Yeah. So, okay, maybe that's an unfair analogy, but when they talk, it's Trump who talks about free speech, and then Starmer said, free speech has been around for a very long time in Britain and will be around for a very long time. But it's not. Because Starmer can't really be taken seriously on that based on the antics of his administration, the locking up of people for 30 words, the arresting of Christian preachers in the street. All of this is happening under his administration. So I do think that there's a complete power imbalance in the relationship between these two. But let's talk about something. I'm going to share a theory now, and I'm interested to know what you think about this. My theory is that we do have the makings of a really special relationship once again. And it's not thanks to Starmer. It's thanks to King Charles and Donald Trump. Now, here's my theory. Because Starmer is so weak and a fourth division player, and Trump's a Premier League player on the world stage, whether you agree with him or not, there's no doubt Xi Jinping from China and Vladimir Putin from Russia are leading the agenda, maybe with a little help from Modi in India as well. But that triumvirate really is at the center of things. Well, Starmer's completely on the outside. So I think there's been a vacuum caused by Starmer and some of his foolishness, like trying to get Kamala Harris to beat Trump. That was a really bad look at the time. But King Charles here is an intellectual equal to Trump. They're roughly the same age. They got similar status in the world. I think through no planning, the new special relationship, Nick, is between King Charles and Donald Trump, two heads of state. And that could be genuinely very beneficial. And it's only happened because Charles is more political than his mother was, Queen Elizabeth II, and because there is a power vacuum at the very top of British politics.
I agree, and I hope you're right, because Charles has been a huge disappointment to me since he's become king, and I hope this is the role he's going to fill, because he's head of state, and the old days of monarchs being apolitical, apart from being in private, things change. So he's a lot more political than his mother, and he has the right to do that. But that's why we have a monarchy. That's why we have a monarch head of state, because it doesn't matter who the prime minister is, because he's going to be, he's going to be king now for many, many years, hopefully. And people can build relationships with him. It doesn't matter about how failing our MPs are. And that's one of the benefits of having a non-elected head of state who stays in post for a long time. Is those relationships can be developed and fostered. And hopefully he'll be saying to Trump, don't worry too much about this government. They won't be here much longer because they're unpopular. The next government may come in. It may be Farage. You like Farage. Give us time. It's all about working with. So I just hope the king turns into the king I want him to be.
I know him, and I have a lot of respect for King Charles. I have a different view on the climate. I don't think there's a climate emergency. And if I get to meet him again in private, then I'll talk with him about that. But I do have perhaps more faith in King Charles than you do. But one thing's for sure, in my view at least, King Charles and Donald Trump do have a genuinely good relationship, in the same way that Margaret Thatcher had a great relationship with Ronald Reagan, and Tony Blair had a great relationship with Bill Clinton. Those were good relationships. Now, because we have such an ineffective and dopey prime minister, the new relationship is between the king of the United Kingdom, King Charles, and the president of the United States, Donald Trump. And I think that axis could be very useful. I suspect what will happen is they will keep in regular contact now and probably have informal meetings after this. My guess is that Donald Trump will invite King Charles for a state visit to America. That's what I think will come from this, but we shall see. As you said, these things take months or years to organize, but I would suspect that he would probably do that and invite him down to Mar-a-Lago. Who knows? I'm not sure what the etiquette for that would be. It's probably be pretty secure, that's for sure.
I don't care who has the relationships. I don't care who gets the benefits out of the relationship, as long as my country is one of the beneficiaries of that relationship. So, let's say Keir Starmer suddenly turned into a world statesperson and he wooed Trump and he got a great deal. But let's say, it flips overnight. I'd be applauding Starmer. Thank you, Starmer. Even though I disagree with you and everything domestically, I want the best for my country. And I don't care who delivers the best for my country. I just want it delivered.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. A few tens of billions of dollars worth of business have been agreed. It's actually a tiny drop in the ocean compared to the size of the economies, but it would be churlish to begrudge that. It's a good thing, and it might bring some new jobs. It's very techie stuff about artificial intelligence. That's good news. But I'm skeptical Starmer will deliver it. But like you, I need this country to work because I don't want to leave it, and I don't want to see it ruined. Let's look at a couple of other things. One of the staunch differences between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer is level popularity with the public. I don't know if you went to it, but we had the huge march led by a very charismatic person, Tommy Robinson, who's that's not Tommy Robinson. I think you've made a mistake, folks. Try and keep up, but we'll maybe get Tommy Robinson on in a moment. He's very charismatic, and I personally think 1.7 million people arrived at a recent demonstration in central London. That's definitely Tommy Robinson. I interviewed him not long ago. Very charismatic, and he can certainly have hundreds of thousands of people. As I say, let's say closer to 2 million in London because the streets were so clogged. That wasn't just a football crowd. That was a fifth of a city's worth of people, and so there's no way Starmer could possibly get people going enough to rally like that. And they don't speak like him. I mean, Tommy Robinson's a tremendous orator. I'm not going to get into his politics, but what I'm saying is at every turn, I would say that Keir Starmer is now being eclipsed by the competition. There's Tommy on a huge stage, or maybe it's a picture that's been put in. And I fact, most of the people who went to this demonstration couldn't actually see him or hear him because they were stuck in Waterloo. There were so many people that the streets were full for 1.5 miles. 100 across. You can do the sums. That's not 100,000 people. I don't know why the Metropolitan Police always want to play it down. So we've got these big characters filling that vacuum. Trump must surely see that there's a power vacuum in this country.
Oh yeah, I mean we all could see it. Why do you think Reform UK is so popular? Because they've got a popular, charismatic leader in Nigel Farage. Reform were nothing, just over a year ago. There was still a micro party. He joins again, and suddenly it looks like now he's going to be the next prime minister. Yeah. We're all crying out for a leader. We're all crying out for somebody who's going to put the country first. We'll even accept someone who tries and fails. I'd accept that because at least I could say, well, at least that person tried and gave it them all, but it all failed. A bit like Liz Truss. She had the right plans, but she failed dramatically. And I don't blame her for trying. I blame her for being incompetent. But at least she tried. And if Keir Starmer or any like Kemi Badenoch, if they tried to be the leader we needed, people at the moment will follow anybody. That's why Reform is so popular. Most people don't even know Reform's policies. Yeah. Reform don't even know Reform's policies, but they're being followed because it's desperation. We're looking for anyone to save us. Now, on the flip side of that, this is where danger is, because all you need is a charismatic leader with a black heart, and they can get into power. They can be more successful. We've not got that in the UK at the moment. So I'm not trying to point anyone out. We haven't got that. But we're just desperate for someone who loves the country, who knows how to lead. And if someone leads, we will follow because we just want a better tomorrow.
I want to pay tribute to Charlie Kirk, who was a massive and staunch advocate and supporter of Donald Trump. He arguably won a lot of the younger vote for Donald Trump with his libertarian agenda. He was assassinated, as is well known now, last year by some cowardly idiot.
Last week.
Who it was recently, sorry, maybe said the wrong time there. Well, recently, depending when you're watching the program, of course. But by some cowardly idiot. No one has formally been found guilty, but whoever it is was clearly too scared to try to win an argument. Instead, they tried to silence the opposition in the most censorious way possible. The murder of a great voice and somebody who could have been the president of America. That's what makes it so absolutely terrible. It was 1 in a million, really. But let's see what Charlie Kirk said about the state of the United Kingdom.
A week, 20 hours of travel to London, Oxford, Cambridge, and back. I know you're all very disappointed I wasn't arrested, but I tried. I tried my best. I went on one of their biggest news programs, GB News. Yeah, right, GB News. And I said that it's not compatible with Western values. And it went very viral, and it was so funny. The production team afterwards at GB News was like, wow, you said that. I'm like, wow, you guys are so British. You should spend some time in America. Our Overton window has moved a lot. The UK is very important to talk about, not just because what's happening in the UK, but also the ramifications here is the UK culturally felt like America before Donald Trump went down the golden escalator. They're in the abyss, but culturally, there is this kind of silent, are we allowed to say this? Are we allowed to challenge this? Are we allowed to talk about this? Are we allowed to question this? And Donald Trump will be in the history books for so many reasons. For isolating the Chinese Communist Party, for shining light on the southern border. But one thing I don't think he gets enough credit for. One thing that I think that gets forgotten in the story of Donald Trump, which, by the way, we are now coming up on a decade of Donald Trump. Next month will be 10 years since he went down the golden escalator. A decade. Complete domination of the Western mind for 10 years. And it's fitting that I went to Oxford and Cambridge and spent time in London before that 10-year mark because it feels so similar. Because once Donald Trump went down the golden escalator, he gave people permission to speak.
And that's the point. He gave people permission to speak. So looking at what's happening in the United Kingdom, you've got Donald Trump, a freedom fighter, in my view, somebody who values free speech and has an absolute warrior by his side, J.D. Vance, when it comes to freedom of speech, self-made man, and had this chap here who I've got huge respect for. And it's such a loss to the libertarian agenda that he's been killed. And then you got Keir Starmer, who doesn't really even understand what free speech means.
No, absolutely. A lot there. Let's talk about Charlie Kirk first of all. Charlie Kirk was a man who wanted to change his country through a million conversations. That's what he did. He spoke to people. He sat down and spoke to people. And he was such a nice guy that when people were asking him questions or speaking to him on campuses and the crowd booed him, he would tell the crowd to be quiet. He would say, this person has a right to speak, even though we disagree with what they're asking and what their point of view is. We disagree, but that doesn't matter. They have a right to be heard. He would tell his fans to be quiet so the person could speak. That's the sort of person he was. I think you missed something out, which I think has definitely changed the UK, and that's Elon Musk buying Twitter. 2 years ago, I had a lifetime ban on Twitter. No warnings. I got banned overnight for criticizing somebody from Ukraine. Elon bought Twitter, and suddenly people in the UK could have conversations again without being kicked off the platform, without being worried about stuff. So then we started talking about immigration, illegal immigration. We're now talking about mass deportations. We're even talking now about remigration. All of these things were unheard of 2 years ago. And we owe Elon Musk a huge thank you for that, as well as Trump, as well as Charlie Kirk and many others. But I think Twitter was a game changer when that became a free speech platform.
I have a lot of time for Twitter, and I've taken it, or X as it's now called. I take it really seriously because the commentary is hilarious on that. This is a bit of an aside, and we haven't got much time left, but I will share it with you because it was so funny. I'm sorry I don't remember who said it, so if it's you, big thank you for it. We were talking about what else David Lammy could do for a living if he wasn't the Deputy Prime Minister. I suggested he could be a junior taste monitor at Greg's the Baker's. And somebody put up, yes, he could bankrupt the company one pie at a time. So the collective consciousness in X really is free-minded, and some people criticize me on it, but it's a free speech environment, and I really like that. I think that the late Charlie Kirk was absolutely right in what he said in that clip that we just observed. And it just makes me so sad. I regret not following him more. I regret not having had the chance to interview him, in fact, Nick, because I think even though he's half my age, or he was half my age, he certainly has giant thoughts. And I think I could have learned something from him too. Now, we've just seen Charlie Kirk there in full flow, 31 years old when he was gunned down. That to me was substantial, what he was saying. Now let's remind ourselves what in Mayor Sadiq Khan's London, the response was to the previous visit by Donald Trump. This is the size of the credibility of Britain. You may not remember this, but I bet you do when you see it. Do you remember this?
The big orange baby.
Great big orange baby, inflated, and then allowed to fly in the sky. Of course, the Guardian was more than happy to broadcast this. Talk about childish. Talk about infantile.
It is, but it's also freedom of speech, freedom of expression. The point I would make is when the dictator of China came, no one did anything like this then. China's got over 1 million Uyghurs, Muslim Uyghurs in concentration camps. It does horrendous stuff, slave labour, everything. The Mayor of London didn't say a thing. There was no demonstrations. But when you've got the biggest democracy in the world coming over, then we can all be childish and do this for him, but we can't do it for real authoritarian regimes.
And I wouldn't ban this, by the way. Like you, I would let them do this, but it exposes them as ludicrous. I don't think Donald Trump will have been shaken to the core by this. Perhaps he was even flattered. I've been flattered sometimes when people mock me. But if you compare that statement and the mealy-mouthed nonsense coming out of Mayor Sadiq Khan's mouth, just this childish drivel. Once again, I wouldn't ban him from saying it because I want people to see what he thinks. I want him to damn himself by his own words. And you compare that and this silly thing with the great statesman-like attitude of Charlie Kirk, and I think J.D. Vance, and the pathos, the irony of Donald Trump. This very beautiful place. People don't realize he's being ironic half the time. That's the problem. That's the great divide, I think, between the people in Downing Street and the people in the White House. And I put it to you, I'll give you the last word on this because we're nearly out of time. I put it to you that the rift exists because we have that fourth division political situation in government at the moment and arguably in Parliament, and a Premier League team who I don't always agree with, but a Premier League team that believes genuinely to its core it can make America great again.
Yep, and they do. And unfortunately, we've not had that since Tony Blair, who I disagreed with on everything, but he was a statesman. He had a vision. It was the wrong vision, but he had a vision and sold us a vision. And before that, it was Thatcher. We can produce those types of leaders. We can. But somewhere along the lines, I think probably from Blair onwards, Blair managed to capture all the institutions and the universities and everything like that. And since then, it's all been about managing his legacy, managing his dream. And all the leaders since then have just been an heir to Blair. And we need to break that. We need to break the post-Second World War globalist, pink and fluffy agenda. We need to go back to a time where it was all about our country. It was all about our citizens and putting them first. We've not put the British, the English people first since the Second World War. That's all my lifetime. We haven't been put first by any of our governments because it's all been about a globalist agenda. And I think we're at the end of that now. For the next government, maybe, we're going to move into a new era where it's going to be more nationalistic. It's going to be more competition between countries. And then obviously that also risks war. But you know what? We've had loads of wars since World War II. Unfair wars, damaging the third world. So wars are part of human nature. But I think the world will be a better place in a decade from now if we get better leaders.
The irony, of course, is that upsurge of patriotism, the British and St. George flags on lampposts, it creates a kind of Anglophobia from the very people who are meant to be serving England and the United Kingdom. You get Anglophobes in the government, people who don't seem to like Englishness or Britishness. Perhaps, though, I put it to you, this is my thought, Anglophobia is a price worth paying for being English. What do you think, Nick?
That's a fantastic sentence. That needs copywriting. Where did you get that from? Because that's an amazing sentence.
I saw it in a book by Nick Buckley MBE. Thank you so much, Nick. We'll talk. I promise we'll do a whole program about your book soon, because that is the name of the book, Anglophobia, the price worth paying for being English. That is Nick Buckley MBE. I'd like to know your views as well. You may have different views. Join me on X. I often have a chat there. And you can also please subscribe to us on Unprecedented TV on YouTube. It's my pleasure to carry on building this station with our great team. But more than anything, it's my honor to serve you at the home of free speech. That's Unprecedented TV. Have a good day.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You gotta work. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're gonna feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages,